generation is to bring almost 50% of our clients, as it were, student client, is women force now. I mean, I sometimes give this example. When I was growing up, my mother was almost uneducated. She could read and write Hindi, but nothing beyond that. And my sister went to college, but she was told not to go out of the house after 5 o'clock. I saw that when I was growing up. We lived in a small refugee colony. To now my own daughters who come home after husbands have come home. They are both professionals. One is a doctor, one is a... This is the story which I think every house here, the faculty will be able to tell you. And sometimes this goes unattended. The celebration part of what India has been able to achieve is often missed. Because we are unhappy, because we are unsatisfied. It's good to be unhappy. It's good to be uncomfortable. It's good to be able to criticize. It's good to be always looking for something better. But I don't think it is good not to see what has happened. So I for one, I know there are gaps. Running UGC, both Jaspal and Agri, is a very unmitigated mess. Absolutely. I mean, the first one. But see, the amount of things you will be able to do in your own lives, in your own career, is breathtaking. In that sense, truly, India is at a cusp. It's one of the very few countries which is going to grow 7-8% no matter what the government is. I'm not going to talk about this reform, that reform. No matter what the government is going to grow 7-8%. No matter what happens. I think those things are already structured. Of course, we'll struggle through from this to that. And struggling is part of it. It's such a large country. So sometime back I had Belgium. Belgian Queen had visited, so I was asked to give a small talk. And so she was saying that how do you handle in India the question of languages? So I was telling her it's not question of language, it's something we don't know how to appreciate and attend to. You travel 200 kilometers away from your house, your gods change, your dresses change, your spices change, your cooking change. It's not just the language, it is everything about us. And to my mind, there's a huge celebration point about this country. It's just not rhetoric, unity, diversity. I think it's just an amazing set of things. So I feel, I mean, that's why I came back. I feel extremely proud to be in India. And I think those of you who are now students who are learning in one of the finest universities should be extremely proud of what your country has been able to achieve. I can reel out what we haven't been able to achieve. It will be silly not to remember what we haven't been. We have 40% malnutrition, the largest number of tuberculosis cases in India. We produce largest amount of milk or bananas, but we have huge amount of hunger. We can send people to Oxford, Cambridge who go and talk there, but we know there are people who have no access. And this is what is, if I can say, very exciting about the generation which will look at these problems. So you have to be extremely careful about your responsibility because you have had the privilege. Needless to say, you will have responsibility. You'll have responsibility to your family, responsibility to yourself, responsibility to your teachers, responsibility to remembrance of a university. But I do hope the education would have taught you enough as you go forward that education is about not trying to get in front of everybody else by all means. I think there's an order in which things should happen and things happen and you have to be very relaxed about it. What I'm trying to say is that education and skilling are two different things. All of us get skilled in one thing or the other. But education should teach you how to respect others. That's what Vivekananda said, the education, and Gandhi said, that education is really about, if you are lucky to be educated, then rest of your life you have only one job. That you attend to those who have not been as privileged as you are. In a broader sense, if all of us did that, I think we probably will have very little to complain to anybody. I think it's a good idea for me to speak a little bit about the current or past 10 years reforms. India, now the education is expanded. As I said, there are 3.6 crore. It probably will be 4 crores before we blink an eye. And it's a very large system. Only Chinese have bigger system, and from the trajectory that I see in education, I think we'll take over China. As we'll take over China in population, we'll take over here also. So that's worrying. Because there is a narrative that you go to university and it's very difficult to argue with. Very difficult to argue with me as a parent, or you as a parent, or you as a student. And this is famous Narayan Murthy's statement that half of our graduates are unemployable. I think this needs to be examined. To expect every kid who goes to university and immediately outside the gate of university will be a job, I think is folly. But to expect everybody who gets out of the gate of this university is to be educated is not a folly. And I think a lot of us, when we were studying in 60s, 70s, we didn't know what job you'll get. So sometimes this gets overstated, but education being what, if you go to Harvard today or go to Oxford, Harvard will cost you 1 year $70,000. If you're a parent, you'll say, why should I spend $70,000 if my son or my daughter cannot recover that money? So in that sense, it's beginning to become an investment. High investment, high return. And I, for one, have no idea how to sort of turn it back. But there's no question that in university you will send people to where the best universities are. And that brings to something which is very uncomfortable. और मुझे बड़ा इसमें मुश्किल लग रहा है कि how do you say a university is good or a university is bad? So पहले you went to a university, you're close to your house, you went to that university. My parents couldn't have afforded me to go anywhere. I went to Delhi University. I happened to be in Delhi. So in the process, rankings of the university started coming in. So I thought I'll just take 2-3 minutes because there's so much narrative about ranking. And I'll try not to take any side. I'll just try to put it across to you. Ranking business is about only 10 years old. And I use the word business very advisedly. It began somewhere in China. The Chinese, as I said, revamped their education in late 80s, early 90s. Chinese knew they will sit on a pile of cash, and they that time decided their competition will be America, so they revamped everything. We're still in the process of revamping. We're nowhere near what China has done vis-a-vis structuring of education. And so suddenly they said, after 10 years Chinese saw, it's very relevant because those of you in the young people in the faculty will be thrown this question at you, where is your university ranked? Jaspal in his introductory remarks said we are 3.51. So these are the numbers. So if he's 3.51 and I'm 3.49, am I worse than 3.51? So these questions will come up and you'll have to deal with them. So when Shanghai ranking began, started with 3 young kids. So what China was asking the question, we've spent so much money for 10 years and we are still nowhere. So nobody is coming to be educated in China, etc., etc. So they put a condition, your university is a Nobel Prize winner or not, either a Booker Award winner or not. And then suddenly, internet had come in, digital technology had come in, and suddenly everybody had access to everything. So these things happened at the same time. Travel became very easy. Industry went into it, digital technologies come in, internet is coming, and suddenly there's an internationalization of education. And the excuse was that the recipient or the client, which is student and parent, needs to know where the best universities are. Come on, we all knew where the good universities were. Didn't need to be told. But then say that, all right, but we will now, make a matrix. And we will work on this matrix. So if you look at, I don't know how many of you follow the ranking business. If you take top 200 of times or top 20, you won't find any disturbance there. Top 20, 25 will be top 25, there are 230. Imperial College will be there, Caltech will be there, Oxford will be there. Those positions are unchallenged. One will become number 4, 4 will become number 3 and so on. So what is this? So China, Peking University says our motto, if you go to their site and open their site, they say what is the vision of China, or Peking University said to be in top 10 in the world. So the word that you will walk into will talk this language, where are you placed? I personally don't think you should take a great note of it. I think we have, India is very different. I've argued this day before yesterday with the QS ranking people. And yesterday we had a meeting. What is ranking doing to us? In India you have a constitutional responsibility. No ranking system will ever look at our constitutional responsibility. You can argue as much as you want to with me. But the constitutional responsibility is with us, and we all swear by our constitution. So QS or Time or Shanghai are never going to have a matrix for that. So while I see no problem, I mean, if you're a tennis player or a badminton player, of course there's a word ranking. PV Sandhu is number 2 ranked. Kashyap is number 2 now. Of course those rankings will be there. You go and beat somebody in China, you go up. But education is much more complicated. But what ranking or such things would do, it allows you to have a good look at yourself. So if you ask me, anything has come out good out of rankings or NAC grading or is that allows you to look at you. And we in India are famously not very good at keeping records of what my university has done. So in that sense, this will be over. So when the young faculty and young students are looking at it, analyze these situations. What does it mean? Should you worry too much about it? If you're ranked, if 79 universities in India are ranked in BRICS 340 is a very good number. Suppose 89 is still a good number. 90 is still a good number. What have we been able to teach our students? Have we made them good citizens? Are they going to be responsible citizens of society? Will they go and serve society? Have we given any values? I think that, to my mind, that will be the core of education. Sometimes goes unattended. And I think onus would be on you to look at that doesn't go unattended. The values that you will learn, and nobody has to give lecture on values. We know what human values are. So I think that you should ponder as you go forward. The last thing I want to talk about is the quality. So as I said, this system is expanded. And now we are talking about quality, and I don't see why we should not talk about quality. So with the wave of a hand, a lot of us would say this is not very good quality education in India. That's why people are going to Australia or Canada or England or wherever. I think that this is something which academics, people who have gone into academics to make a career out of academics, should really ponder about. If education system or our quality has gone down, who is responsible? So you can say government is responsible, okay? UGC is responsible, definitely okay. If this is responsible, so always there's somebody else is responsible. Monies are not there, taken, I totally agree, I will not argue. There should be more money. If you want quality, you have to pay more money. No question. But given the money that we have, we are a poor country, please don't forget that. With all this 7-8%, remember for years to come, vis-a-vis health, education, social, that we are a poor country, resource-wise we will remain poor country. But given what resources we have we done the optimum work or not? And that's a question at me. That's a question at my generation. That's a question at Ramesh's generation. Have we done the job that we could have done? That's a question at you, the first 5 rows. Have we individually, collectively, as department done what could have been done? So I'm not here to stand here to pass a value judgment. Personally, I think we failed. Personally, I think we become